I have wasted a lot of money, I have made a lot of bad calls, and today I'm going to tell you about all of them. No filter, no excuses, just a straight, honest walkthrough of every piece of hardware and every piece of software that I bought or started using, thinking it was going to improve my life or my workflow, and ended up doing the exact opposite. Some of these mistakes are specifically Linux related, meaning the product just does not play nicely with the Linux system, and I should have known better before spending the money. Some of them have nothing to do with Linux at all, and are just me falling for the hype, or convincing myself I had a use case when I really did not. Either way, every single thing on this list cost me money, cost me time, cost me frustration, or all three at once. So let us get straight into it. The first and probably most impactful bad decision I made was switching to an iPhone. Yes, I know, you told me. When I made that video announcing I was leaving Android, you all said it was a mistake, and you were completely right. The reason I left Android in the first place was that I could not find a phone that hit all my requirements at the same time. I needed good camera quality because I was recording videos on my phone. I needed a screen that was not ridiculously oversized. I needed solid battery life, and I needed a phone that could run a de-Googled Android ROM reliably. The intersection of all of those requirements basically did not exist at the time, at least not in anything I could find, so I went with an iPhone 13 Pro and told myself it would be fine. It was not fine, not for a Linux user anyway. The problems started the moment I tried to actually integrate the iPhone with my Linux desktop workflow. Syncing things between an iPhone and a Linux machine is a genuinely painful experience. The tools that exist for it are limited, unreliable, and nowhere near as capable as what you get on Android. KDE Connect works on iPhone, but it is a stripped-down version of itself. Features that work perfectly on Android simply do not exist on the iOS version because Apple locks down what background processes can do. Background photo sync is a nightmare. Most apps can only sync when you have them open in the foreground or when the phone is plugged in and charging. That is not real background sync. That is just a workaround that does not actually solve the problem. On top of the Linux integration issues, the iPhone itself has developed reliability problems over time. It regularly gets stuck on the blurred wallpaper when unlocking, and I have to lock it and unlock it again to get past it. It periodically forgets that my SIM card exists and requires a full reboot to detect it again. Performance has degraded noticeably since I first got it, which is exactly what you would expect from planned obsolescence, through software updates. And the privacy and openness improvements that the EU fought hard to bring to iOS have not really materialized in any meaningful way. I still cannot run a real version of Firefox using the actual Firefox engine. I still cannot get genuinely open source apps on the device. Alternative app stores technically exist now, but they offer the same apps you can already get from the regular app store, not the additional open source alternatives that were supposed to be the whole point. There is no F-Droid equivalent for iPhone. There is no Aurora Store equivalent. What was promised has not been delivered. I am moving back to Android, and I will compromise on hardware specs if I have to in order to get back to an operating system that is actually open, that I can control, and that integrates properly with my Linux desktop. Now, to go along with the iPhone, I also bought AirPods, and this might actually be the worst value for money item on this entire list. I have had them for about 2 years, and they are already completely falling apart in terms of functionality. Battery life is essentially gone. They last for an hour at most on a full charge, and the charging case itself barely holds any charge either. The microphones have developed a serious fizzling and crackling problem that makes recording voice messages completely impossible. The audio quality coming through those mics right now is genuinely embarrassing for a product at that price point. Calls are basically unusable. Pairing is unreliable. Often only one earbud connects even when both are fully charged. They charge via Lightning, which means one extra cable sitting on my desk just for these two devices when everything else I own uses USB-C. They sometimes fail to pause audio when I take them out of my ears, so I put them back in, and the video I was listening to finished 20 minutes ago and the battery is now dead. I did not drop these regularly. I did not abuse them. They lived in their case, and they still degraded this badly in 2 years. That is not acceptable for what these cost. Wireless earbuds that pair reliably with Linux via Bluetooth and do not fall apart after 2 years clearly exist because people recommend them constantly. I just did not buy them. The next category of mistake I want to talk about is fitness trackers and smartwatches, because I fell into this trap not once, but twice. I owned a Galaxy Watch Active 2 back when I was using a Samsung phone, and I owned a Fitbit Inspire 3 after that. And both times, the experience followed the exact same pattern. The first few days were genuinely exciting. New data, new graphs, new insights into how my body was moving and sleeping. And then reality set in. First problem with smartwatches specifically is that they need to be charged every single day. I am already managing charging cycles for my phone, my laptop, my headphones, my tablet, my controllers, my wireless keyboard, my wireless mouse. Adding another device that demands daily attention is just adding friction to my life that I do not need. The Fitbit was better on that front with a battery life of around 5 days, but the watch was every single day without fail. Second problem is notifications. The whole pitch of these devices includes staying connected through wrist notifications, but in practice, getting buzzed on the wrist constantly while trying to focus on work or have a conversation is just worse than having your phone buzz in your pocket. So I turned notifications off and eliminated one of the main selling points of the device entirely. But the biggest problem for me personally was what these trackers do to your relationship with exercise and physical activity. Instead of making me feel good about working out, they made me feel inadequate about it. I do a solid hour and a half of exercise, and the watch still tells me I only hit 4,000 steps today, and my goal is 10,000. I already worked out. I do not need a device on my wrist to make me feel like it was not enough. The graphs, comparing today's performance to my peak performance, the daily reminders, the nudges, all of it combined to make fitness feel like a chore with metrics attached, rather than something I actually wanted to do. My motivation to work out dropped significantly while wearing these devices. When I stopped wearing them, it came back. So I sold the watch at a loss, and I now use the Fitbit purely as an alarm clock in the morning, which is a very expensive alarm clock. Both purchases were bad for my specific personality and use case. Now let us talk software, and this one genuinely affects my work every single day. Switching to DaVinci Resolve was a mistake, and it is a mistake I am still living with right now because getting out of it is complicated. The application itself as a video editor is excellent, it is stable, it is fast, it is powerful, and it does everything I need for making videos. That part is not the problem. The problem is everything surrounding it when you are a Linux user. Resolve has effectively locked me into using an NVIDIA GPU. It can theoretically run on AMD hardware, but in practice it is not reliable at all. The few transitions and effects I use in my videos, nothing exotic or complex, crash resolve consistently on AMD graphics. I tried the native Mesa OpenCL implementation, I tried ROCm, I tried multiple other approaches, and the result is always either Resolve refusing to start at all, or Resolve starting and then crashing the moment any effect is applied. So I am stuck with NVIDIA, which comes with its own set of trade-offs on Linux that I would rather not be dealing with. The installation experience on Linux is also genuinely one of the worst I have ever encountered for any application. It uses a bin file installer and installs itself into the opt directory, which means it is completely incompatible with immutable Linux distributions. If you want to run it on an immutable distro, you need to use something like DaVinci Box, which is essentially a containerized operating system, just to run Resolve, meaning you now have an entire separate OS environment to maintain just to use your video editor. Additional plugins like the Reactor plugin system, which is useful for pre-built animations, require very old versions of software dependency S that you then need to hunt down as RPM packages for the Fedora version inside the container because they no longer exist in any standard repository. It works, but it should not be this hard. Resolve also ships with some of its own system libraries, but not all of them. So the ones it does ship with try to call libraries from your actual system, leading to version mismatches every time your system updates and the program refusing to start. The workaround is to move the libraries Resolve ships with, so it uses only the system ones, but that is not a supported configuration and causes its own crashes. It cannot be resized properly because it is designed to run full screen, and resizing the window causes crashes. It does not have a title bar by default. It claims to support KDE global menu integration, but enabling that causes focus issues where Resolve loses focus and cannot get it back. This program should be a flat pack. Ship it as a flat pack with all its dependencies bundled, and 90% of these problems disappear. Until that happens, Resolve on Linux is a burden. I'm looking at moving back to Kdenlive or another open source editor, but the time investment required to relearn a new tool after years in Resolve is significant, which is exactly the kind of lock-in that makes this decision so costly in the long run. The next mistake is a keyboard, and this one is entirely on me because I actually like typing on it, which makes it worse. It is a Jellycomb keyboard with an Apple S tile layout, wireless, Bluetooth with 3 PA. Ping feel is great for me because I am used to laptop keyboards, and this replicates that experience. So why is it on this list? Because I chose an Apple-style layout, and every single Linux distribution I have EV, and less than key swaps with the AT symbol and hashtag key by default, meaning every time I type, I produce the opposite of what I want, until I run a specific fix script that I have saved somewhere and always have to hunt for, because I never remember the actual command. This happens on every distro, every single one. The numpad mode also misbehaves regularly. flipping on without warning, so that pressing I, O, P, K, and M produces numbers instead of letters. Pressing the key that is supposed to toggle it off does not always work and requires rebooting sometimes to resolve. And the keyboard is not detected at the login screen because Bluetooth keyboards do not pair until after you are logged in under my current NT setup, meaning every time I reboot, I have to open the laptop lid, type my password on the laptop keyboard, which is set to a different layout, and then switch H back. This is a daily annoyance that I created entirely for myself by choosing a keyboard with a non-standard layout. The hardware is fine. The decision was not. Moving away from Linux-specific problems, one purchase I genuinely do not get value from is my Nintendo Switch. The pitch I made to myself was Mario Kart evenings and Mario Party sessions with family. Plus finally playing through Breath of the Wild, Metroid Prime, Mario Odyssey, and Luigi's Mansion. The family gaming sessions happen maybe 3 times a year and are genuinely fun. The single-player experience has not gone the way I planned. Ned. Breath of the Wild did not click for me. The weapon degradation, the constant gear swapping, the cooking mechanics, around 10 hours in and 10 shrines completed, I was already done with it. Mario Odyssey is technically impressive, but has no story, and I need narrative to stay engaged with a game over time. Luigi's Mansion and Metroid Prime, I enjoyed B. UT here is the problem. I already own a Steam Deck. I can emulate Switch games on it. Everything I have enjoyed on the Switch I could have played elsewhere. The console itself sits unused next to Teehee television for most of the year, and I bought it before the price increase, which softens the blow slightly but does not change the fact that it was an unnecessary purchase. The last item is an iPad mini, and it represents a category of mistake that I think is very common. I did not have a use case, and then I bought a product and tried to invent one. I told myself I would use it to read books, watch videos while traveling, work on the go, and relax on the couch with something more portable than a laptop. In practice, none of those things worked out. For reading at night, the Sikari. N is too bright even at minimum brightness in dark mode, and it disturbs my wife. In sunlight, it is unreadable, unless brightness is at maximum, which drains the battery in roughly 2 hours. For travel, I end up taking the laptop anyway because I still need to work when I'm away. And for watching video, the screen is too small to be enjoyable on a long journey. For couch use, my television is right there and is significantly arger. The device also has a noticeable wobble effect when scrolling that makes everything feel cheap, and performance is not where it should be for the price. It now lives on my desk and gets used to read YouTube comments during live streams. That is it. That is the entire use case of an expensive Apple tablet in my life. And like the iPhone and AirPods, it shares all the same Linux integration frustrations when I actually need to move files to or from it. The honest summary of everything on this list is simple. The 2 decisions I regret most from a Linux workflow perspective are Resolve and the iPhone. Resolve because it is a great application trapped inside a terrible Linux support situation that has locked me into hardware choices I would rather not be making. And the iPhone because the promise of interoperability with Linux tools exists on paper, but falls short in practice every single day. Everything else on this list is mostly me buying products before I understood my actual needs, convincing myself. A use case existed when it did not, or just falling for the hype without thinking it through. It happens. It cost me money. And now I have told you about all of it, so maybe it does not have to cost you the same.